Hey, Jeff Lerner here, and in this video we are talking about how to retire early with real estate. I do want to say, by retire early, we have to still have a reasonable perspective about long-term thinking. You know, for the average person, retirement is like a 40 or 50 year plan. I'm talking about condensing that to like anywhere from a 2 to 10 year plan. We're not talking about some magical lottery ticket thing that's gonna have you retired in 6 months. I mean, maybe it has happened, but that's not really what this video is about. This video is about how to accelerate retirement, not to magically make it happen right away. Okay, so that said, let's talk about how to make it happen with real estate. First of all, I want to share with you what I believe is the best long-term strategy for real estate investing for the average person who wants to, fundamentally change their quality of life in a way that's accessible and has a reasonable risk profile that's, not going to set them up for potential disaster. And it's kind of one of those things that as you make progress, it's almost always sustainable, permanent progress. It's kind of a thing where you're not going to go up and down and up and down. It's like even if the strategy I'm about to tell you is a little bit harder than maybe some of the hypier, more flash in the pan real estate strategies that you might find online and that might seem sexy at first, this strategy is something where your gains are going to stick. They're going to raise the floor underneath you. There's some methods that are all just about cash flow, and cash flow is great, but cash flow goes up, cash flow goes down, cash flow goes up, cash flow goes down. This is more of a method that just slowly raises the floor underneath you, because once you get the floor, we all have a set point where once we get that floor underneath us to, let's say $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, we're fundamentally retired, right? We don't have to trade our time for money anymore, and that's what this strategy is. And the strategy is long-term rentals. I know that there's a lot of stuff online, like I said, that seems really sexy and appealing, like turning Airbnb leases, which I do and I support, flipping houses and wholesaling, which I do and I support, or lease options, which I have done and I support. I support all this stuff. But even for myself, at the core, my core retirement strategy since I was in my early 20s, since I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in whatever that was, 2000, my core strategy has been acquiring long-term rental properties that could simultaneously generate any amount of positive cash flow. I don't care if it's $20 a month, $200 a month. Obviously, my best property, I don't do a lot of big properties. My best property is a 9-unit apartment complex that cash flows between $1,500 and $2,000 in a good month. Some months are not that good, but whether it's $20 a month or $2,000 a month, to just have positive cash flow every month, any amount of positive cash flow that's on a long-term bankable consistent basis is of huge present value as an asset. That's the term, present value. What is the value right now of all the predictable future cash flows adjusted for risk and certainty? There's just nothing like positive cash flow from real estate, because real estate is permanent. They can't make any more of it. They can build houses, but they can't print any more land. It's not like money where they just keep printing and printing. People always have to live. You could strip away every other artifice of modern living and people would still need a roof over their head. It's just trading, rent for survival. You're tapped into the most core of the human economy when you're earning that kind of cash flow. That's why it's so predictable. That's why it has such a high value for us long term. So any amount of cash flow, and then that raises the floor. That's whether it's $20 a month or $200 a month that you don't have to go earn from a job. Man, over the course of your life, that's huge. And then you do it again, and you do it again. And the nice thing about real estate is, as long as you're buying reasonable properties in reasonable areas, you're not buying in Dust Bowl ghost towns and crazy, buying old carnivals from Scooby-Doo episodes or something. As long as you're buying reasonable properties, you're building a long-term asset too, which it's going to appreciate in value. It's going to give you borrowing power. It's going to improve your credit. It's got so many fundamental positives for your life. So that's why I just believe that long-term rentals that you can buy and hold and you can earn cash flow from, and you can grow essentially a base of equity that turns into credit, that turns into more borrowing power, that makes it easier to acquire new properties. it just, to me, it just blows everything else out of the water in terms of long-term stability. Let's talk about how to acquire long-term rentals. Step one, though, is actually having a job for 2 years in the same industry. Now, you can change jobs, but you don't want to change from like a retail sales job to being a dental hygienist, or else you're going to essentially reset the clock. You have to have 2 years of stable, consistent job history employed in the same industry and be able to show tax returns and or W-2 pay stubs showing that you're getting paid on a consistent basis over the course of 2 years. And typically with residential real estate investments, I recommend definitely that people start with residential, not with commercial, mostly because you can get a lot more leverage from banks. Typically, you can get into residential investment properties for 3 to 5% down payments if you have good credit, whereas commercial, they're almost always going to require at least probably a 25% down payment on the deal. So you're going to want to save up the cash, and I recommend that you do that before you go out and start looking at property. So let's say that you want to target a $200,000 property. You just know that you're going to have at least 10 grand saved. 10 grand would be a 5% down payment. Realistically, probably want to save 15 grand so you have some money for closing costs, or depending on what kind of property, if you're going to go in and do some repairs, particularly if you have some trade skills and you know how to supervise and oversee repairs in a way where you're not going to get screwed by contractors and such. Maybe you want to save up some more so that you can afford to do some repairs and add value to the property. It's always on a case-by-case basis. But I just recommend that you first of all, focus on saving the down payment, building up your credit, and establishing your work history, solidifying your work history before you even bother going to look at all the houses. Because what I find a lot of times people do, and I kind of did this when I was young, is you're in such a hurry to like get this part of your life going, and for very good reason, that they go out and they find a deal, and then they start trying to work backwards to like force the square peg of their life into the round hole of the deal when they're not really in a position to do it. And what can happen with that is, and this happened to me early in my real estate investing career, I actually lost 3 properties because I was able to acquire them, but I didn't actually have the capital to operate them on an ongoing basis. I was so thin, I was so tapped out just in acquiring the properties that, a couple extra months with a vacancy, or one of them I had to repair the roof, and the insurance company took 3 months to cut the check, and I was overextended trying to get the roof repaired.
I couldn't get the roof repaired, so it was leaking, so the tenant got pissed and moved out and threatened to sue
if I tried to enforce the lease, because they said I breached the lease because I had a leaky roof and I didn't repair it in time because I was waiting on the insurance check, and I needed 10 grand and I didn't have the extra 10 grand.
Being undercapitalized, despite what you hear in these real estate doesn't cost you any money kind of stuff, I mean, with this strategy that I'm talking about, it does. It doesn't take a huge amount of money, but look at it this way. They say in the world we live in now, you realistically need about $2 million to comfortably retire. $2 million that you can park into very safe investments, maybe, government bonds or, real estate investment trust, or some place you can park the money and just bank on a return. $2 million at even 5% is, what's that, $100,000 a year passive income. It's about $88,000 a month. $8,500 a month. 33, I think. Fuzzy on the math. And it's about $8,300 a month is what $2 million at 5% would generate you. So you can save up $2 million, or you can do what I'm saying, which is, $10,000 and $20,000 increments at a time, roll them into houses that generate, let's say, $500 a month on average in positive cash flow, and you get 16 of those. Now you're at the same return that you would be getting on $2 million at 5%. 16 houses times $500 a month is $8,000 a month. That's $100 grand a year free and clear for people, not to mention all the tax benefits you get from real estate. So, the reason I'm saying this is I'm kind of pulling the punch. The punch is real estate's awesome and you can make a lot of money without having a lot of money. But pulling it is but you still need some money. Being realistic, and I'll save you a lot of time, that rather than spending all your time trying to desperately to find YouTube videos of people that'll tell you that you can make a ton of money and retire and have this amazing life without needing any cash out of pocket, blah blah blah. Rather than spending your time watching those videos, double down at your job, work consistently for 2 years, save up 20 grand, go out and do your first deal the right way, and use that as a springboard to move into other deals. I can tell you from experience that it's yes, there are ways to do it with no money. Again, I even teach this, so it's not like I'm poo-pooing the strategy, but like leasing houses and then turning around and subleasing them on Airbnb. Even that though, you got to have, at least first and last month's rent. You got to have enough money to furnish and stage the house. You're usually going to want to have enough money to cover at least some amount of the lease in a vacancy situation. Like, let's say you can't rent it out for some reason, or you have a bad month. Even then, you're looking at probably needing $3,000 to $5,000 depending on the property. So, just having the mindset of like, I'm working hard in my life to acquire small chunks of capital that I can go turn into really big long-term valuable assets, rather than having the mindset of I'm constantly probing the universe to try to find opportunities to get something for nothing. It's a paradigm shift mentally that I think is important to say online, because I see so much internet education that's based around the something for nothing idea. And it's just a lot better strategy to, like I said, work for 2 years, establish a consistent job history, save up $10,000 to $25,000 chunks of income, go deploy them into good deals, work hard on your credit, properly establish good 700 or even ideally 720 plus credit. And I have a whole video on how you can build credit fast. And then actually get the backing of a bank. Like sit down with a bank, a local bank, mostly smaller local banks. As long as you have good credit and good work history, they're like excited to deploy capital. Smaller local and regional banks get excited to do these kind of deals and to back people like you and like what we're talking about, because it just gives them hooks into the market, because their number one focal point is always competing with bigger banks and grabbing market share from bigger banks so that they can actually grow their stable loan base so they can get bigger lines of credit from the Federal Reserve and actually do bigger deals. With these smaller deals that you want to do, you'll actually a lot of times get more love from local and regional banks. So go into them, show them your profile, tell them what you want to do, get a pre-qualification letter so that when you do find a good deal, you can strike quickly. And this is key. This is huge. I learned this the hard way. I bought the wrong deals. I bought deals that were good but not great, and I bought deals too soon. Look at 100 houses before you buy a deal. And don't just look at the house and go, do I like the house? You're not looking at it to see if you want to live there. You're looking at it to see if it makes great sense on paper. So review 100 deals on paper, do the numbers. And the bare minimum that you're looking for, in my experience, is you need to be able to rent the house for at least 1% of the price of the house. If you're going to get into a house for $150,000, and this is a super simplified formula. There's a lot more nuances to it. There's no point in buying a $150,000 house that you can't rent for 1%, rent for $1,500 a month. Now, that's one of the reasons why a lot of times you'll want to look at duplexes, threeplexes, and fourplexes first, because it's a lot of times easier to make those rent numbers. Now, one thing I will tell you is if you get above 4 units in most markets, now you're talking about commercial loans, commercial lenders, different banking, different down payment requirements. Typically, you're going to want to look for properties that have 2 to 4 units. Those are usually going to be the easiest ones to hit that bare minimum threshold of being able to collect 1% in gross rents of the value of the price that you pay for the home. Not the value, the price. It doesn't matter what the value is, it matters what you pay for it. Rinse, wash, repeat. Do that again and again. I'll have more videos. I've got some. I'll produce more to get into the mechanics and the nuances of this, but basically that's the formula. Acquiring properties like I just described, where you can get at least 1% a month in gross rents. Again, that's easier usually to do with multifamily properties, smaller multifamily properties. Having all the other pieces in place, having enough capital that you can actually go in and do the deal the right way and not be overstretched and possibly lose the house in an adverse event. And for most people, doing that 10 to 20 times over the course of a decade or a 5-year period, or however long it takes you, that gets you to retirement. If you figure you can clear $300 to $500 on a house, $300 to $500 a month in cash flow, then 10 properties will be $3,000 to $5,000 a month in cash flow. 20 properties would be $6,000 to $20,000 a month in cash flow. I think I said those numbers right. And you're free. That's the formula. Personally, I've got a couple dozen properties and I'm free. Everything else in my life is fun and exciting and gravy, and hopefully I make millions of dollars and all that. But at the end of the day, I know I can feed my family, and I know I don't have to go trade my time for money just thanks to a couple dozen rental properties. This is, I believe, the long-term strategy to retire as fast as possible. Hey, if you want more tips and insight on how to have an amazing life, that's what my channel is all about. I'm the founder of EntreNation. We're a group of people that are committed to building businesses to pay for our awesome lives. And hey, if that sounds like something you're into, I invite you to subscribe to my channel. Click that little button and make sure you hit the bell so you get notified when I put out new videos. I thank you for your time. I'll see you on the next video.